Gives it back to Russ. Deep shot. What a perfect ending!
That shot is 1000% the pinnacle of Russell Westbrook's career. A sick buzzer beater to cap an MVP season in which he averaged a triple-double. It doesn't get better than that. In the ensuing 5 seasons since that moment, Westbrook has averaged a triple-double 3 more times, set new point guard rebounding records, and has played for 4 different teams and won just a single playoff round. Never before have we seen a player like Russell Westbrook. He has literally rewritten history, record books, but also has become the most criticized player in the NBA.
Can you win in the NBA with your team led by Russell Westbrook?
It appears to be no.
And the crazy thing is, nobody can say Stephen A is wrong for that take. Russ is 14 seasons into his NBA career, has played with a ton of talent, yet has no rings to show for it. But does that fact truly define his career? A career that's been full of extremely high highs and, yes, a reasonable share of lows.
Russ is going to average a triple-double. He's going to put, people like, oh my goodness. But it doesn't equate to win.
Again, Shannon is probably right, but whether it was his MVP season heroics or the transcendent moment we're talking about in this video, Russell Westbrook has earned his spot amongst the greats of this game. So why don't we take a second to appreciate the Brody?
Okay, I'm in.
Today we're traveling back to June 2012. Gautier's Somebody That I Used to Know was atop the Billboard charts while the original Avengers movie was still top 10 in box office a month after its release. What a freaking time to be alive. Anywho, at this time Russell Westbrook and the OKC Thunder found themselves just 1 series away from fulfilling their destiny. In the midst of a shift in the NBA in which superstars were leading the charge for player empowerment and increased player movement, LeBron, the Thunder remained a truly wholesome draft and development story. A core consisting of 23-year-old Westbrook, 23-year-old Durant, 22-year-old Harden, and 22-year-old Serge Ibaka were all drafted within a 3-year span and were all coming into their own by 2012. Kevin Durant finished as the runner-up for MVP, made first-team All-NBA, and won his 3rd scoring title in a row. James Harden won 6th Man of the Year, while Serge Ibaka was runner-up for Defensive Player of the Year. Our guy Russell Westbrook had his finest season to date, a career-high 23.6 points a game on 54% true shooting, making 2nd team All-NBA. It's easy to overlook how ferocious this Thunder team was despite being very young. They had won 47 games during the regular season, 2nd in the West, and would sweep the reigning champion Dallas Mavericks, the Kobe Bryant-led Lakers in 5, and finally the still dynastic Spurs in 6. This coming all on the heels of a run to the West Finals in 2011. So we can all agree, right? The Thunder, very good, yes? On the other side of that matchup in the 2012 Finals was the Big 3 Miami Heat. We know that story by now. LeBron and the Heat choked in a huge way 1 year prior against the Mavericks and were on a true redemption tour this season. They had barely edged past the Boston Celtics in the East Finals, needing the full 7 games and this iconic LeBron meme just to do so. Entering the series, there weren't too many questions about Kevin Durant, James Harden, the other role players on the Thunder. No, they were mostly just about Russell Westbrook. As touched on during the intro, Westbrook's slander is inescapable here in 2022 thanks to a hellish season with the Lakers. But it was also extremely prevalent over a decade ago.
There's no way in my mind that the OKC Thunder will ever win a championship with Russell Westbrook at the point guard.
Reminder that Russ was still just 23 years old in his 4th NBA season at this point. I obviously can't say Coach Nick in that clip was wrong. I mean, he was actually very right. But to think we've all had the same talking points about a player for this long, it's wild. Russ had seemingly turned a corner in the 2012 playoffs, however, as one finals prediction article labeled him the X factor for the series. The author would cite the improvement from Westbrook's efficiency and control, quote, "Now he's getting rid of the bad decisions that were the biggest weakness left in his game." That was nothing but facts too, as during the regular season, Russ finished 6th in the league, averaging 3.6 turnovers per game. But during the playoffs, he cut that number down to 2.3 a game.
That's not bad.
True that, Tony. And even more impressive were Westbrook's numbers through the first 3 games of the series, the NBA Finals, the biggest stage in basketball. A shade over 24 points, 7 rebounds, and 7 assists per game. More importantly, his turnover numbers were cut once again down to 2 a game, and he was rocking an average game score of 17.6. For reference, that number would have put him 7th in the NBA in 2012, a pretty impressive number. Also, shout out to Kobe. But again, as referenced in the intro to this video, there's always been a desire to see more from Russ outside of just the numbers. And yeah, in 2012, that was also part of the story. A story that began with positivity as OKC would seize control of the series by defending home court in Game 1. A back and forth tilt which saw the Thunder up by just a single point entering the fourth quarter, but would finish with them opening up an 11-point difference. While the masses began to clamor about another potential choke for LeBron and the Heat, Thunder fans and media were focused on the ongoing development of their point guard. Durant had a monster game, and 3 of his down-the-stretch baskets came off Westbrook passes, wrote Barry Trammell. This is the kind of point guard play everyone has been clamoring for Westbrook to produce, even though he often has. Flash forward 1 week though, the tune had changed. A controversial no call towards the end of Game 2 saw the Heat wrestle back home court advantage. Game 3 was a 4-point game entering the fourth quarter. LeBron would take over down the stretch as the Heat claimed a 2-1 series lead. The narrative around Westbrook had completely shifted following the 2 losses, as Magic Johnson said after Game 2,
"That was the worst point guard in a championship finals I've ever seen."
Yikes. Russ in turn would stubbornly defend his play, saying, quote, "Regardless of what anybody says or regardless of what you guys say about how I play, it doesn't matter. I'm gonna play my game regardless of what happens." And this is when every Russ hater stands up and does the Leonardo DiCaprio pointing meme. For all his individual greatness and accolades, a seeming lack of self-awareness has been the crippling hindrance in Russell Westbrook's entire career, dating back over a decade. But obviously I made this video for a reason and have chose to have a pro-Russ mentality for the most part, and that's because of what would play out in Game 4 of the 2012 NBA Finals. Coming off his weakest performance of the series with just 18 points, 5 assists in Game 3, Russ would waste no time getting on the board in Game 4, careening through the lane with a tough lefty finish. That clip I played earlier from Basketball Breakdown was from a video that also featured Coach Nick shredding Westbrook's shot selection.
Almost all of his shots come early in the shot clock without the defense having to work it all. There's almost never anybody under the basket, and even still, when he shoots it and misses, they're usually such hard bricks that there's no chance for an offensive rebound. Look at that.
Well, early in the shot clock, check. Nobody under the basket, check. But Russ smoothly connected on his first pull-up jumper regardless. Take that, Nick. The early Westbrook onslaught continued as Russ would drop a gorgeous spin dime to Kendrick Perkins under the rim before hitting yet another mid-range pull-up after working around a pick. League MVP LeBron James was finally able to get on the board himself in Game 4, but Russ had the answer, curling off a double high screen into a clean look from the elbow. And this one checked all the boxes in a positive way. First, it was a truly wide open shot. Second, while being early in the shot clock, at least Wade and LeBron were forced to work through a screen. And finally, Kendrick Perkins was under the rim in prime rebounding position. Westbrook was onto something early in this game. He was also over something too, and by that I mean Chris Bosh with the... okay, wow. I mean, he almost killed Chris Bosh with that dunk. This close. At the 6:19 mark of the first quarter, 6-man James Harden would enter the game for the first time. 3 minutes later, 37-year-old Derek Fisher subbed in for the first time.
I don't really care.
Fair enough, but here's why you should care. During the regular season, Russell Westbrook played 94% of his minutes at the point guard position, while in the playoffs, that number dropped all the way down to 67%. Those numbers come from Basketball Reference and I think paint a pretty important picture. Arguably the best stretch of Russ's early career came when he spent at least a bit of time playing off-ball. And when you consider the playmaking prowess of James Harden and the steadying presence of Derek Fisher, it makes sense that Russ thrived. Regardless of other ball handlers being on the court though, Russ would continue to cook with his jumper. LeBron was some pretty lax D there. OKC would close the first quarter of Game 4 up 14 with both their stars locked in. However, with Westbrook on the bench, Miami would go on a run. A Norris Cole triple, a LeBron slice and scoop with his left, LeBron to Wade for a quick hitter in transition, and finally a James Jones bomb to erase the big deficit. Those Heat were, pretty good. Look at how quick, explosive, and decisive Russell Westbrook was on this drive to the rim. He was also making all the correct choices in this game, grabbing the rebound after an Ibaka block, pushing in transition, and finding Harden on the wing for an excellent look. More quick decisions from him as he took one hard dribble into a balanced pull-up for 2. Then with the shot clock winding, he was clearly in a rhythm as he bounced into another jumper from the wing. The final highlight from Russ in what was a spectacular first half.
Cephalosha inside. Westbrook comes flying in and throws it down.
For all the criticism of Westbrook over the years, for all his stubbornness to adapt, I mean, look at what he did in an NBA Finals game. Look! And he didn't slow down either. After LeBron barreled through the lane to give Miami a third quarter lead, Russ would answer by not forcing a pass to Durant and taking another confident pull-up. Here's Russ working perfectly off Harden, stepping into another one from the elbow after James drew in the defense. LeBron would hit a pair of free throws, then a tough righty hook over Harden to give the Heat their biggest lead of the game. But Russ answered with an awkward finish after, well, an awkward sequence. Miami just kept pouring it on, but Westbrook specifically kept responding with a push and pull up in semi-transition, 26 points through 3 quarters for Russ. Kevin Durant had 22 points of his own at this time, but trust me, this was the Russell Westbrook show for OKC. With Fisher and Harden back on the floor alongside Russ to begin the fourth, he'd take a defensive rebound coast to coast and finish beautifully with the Euro step. Mario Chalmers had the best game of his career in Game 4.
Haslam tips it away as Fisher gets knocked to the ground. And Chalmers with a 3.
But Russ was playing out of his mind, like in a good way. First, he'd patiently operate through traffic, finishing with his left hand. Then he'd relentlessly attack the exact same spot, hanging and hitting off glass. Dwayne Wade would pull up for a rare 3 and earn a bang from Mike Breen, but y'all, Russell MF in Westbrook.
Westbrook again to the basket. Again he puts it in and a foul.
Let me just take a second to say right here, I'm not truly sure what my motivation was in making this video. I mean, to be honest, I'm probably hoping the YouTube algorithm treats me well because Westbrook is usually a trendy topic. But without any concrete plans or motivation when I sat down to make this video, I was blown away revisiting this game. Russell Westbrook was the most dominant player on the floor in an NBA Finals game, which included prime LeBron James. I don't know what it all means, or if it matters at all, it probably doesn't, but man, I am glad I made this video. That's it. Pointless rant over. Russ was basically Ayaz at this point because he had that melodic pull-up jumper on replay, cutting the Heat lead down to just 2 points. Then to tie the game, he'd make his way to the free throw line where he'd convert a pair. Russ scored 13 straight points for the Thunder in the fourth. Wow. Okay, flash forward. This game was the first instance of LeBron battling cramps in the NBA Finals. He'd still managed to do this, however.
Tries a 3.
Miami would make it a 5-point lead, but Russ wouldn't stop attacking, again pushing the pace in semi-transition, finishing difficultly over Shane Battier inside. Mario Chalmers' heroics continued with a drive past Westbrook for 2, but you-know-who answered with a tough banker, once again keeping the Thunder alive. But this is where disaster struck. OKC would masterfully shut down a Heat possession up 3, with Wade having to force up a floater and a jump ball being called with 0.8 seconds left on the shot clock. Jeff Van Gundy was right on the situation, immediately pointing out,
now the shot clock goes back to 5 seconds.
A scrambled jump ball would result in the Heat taking possession, and immediately Westbrook would intentionally foul Mario Chalmers?
Why are they fouling?
Why indeed, Jeff? Why indeed? Obviously unaware of the shot clock reset to 5 seconds, Russ assumed OKC was in a must-foul situation when Miami took control. But with a 10-second difference between the game and shot clock, he simply didn't have to. Chalmers would connect on the dagger free throws, Kevin Durant would airball a last-chance look, and the Thunder would find themselves down 3-1 in the NBA Finals. Is this game like the perfect encapsulation of Russell Westbrook's career? Dominant play for 47.5 minutes, but one costly mental mistake which undid everything. I don't know, man.